Hi students, this is Dr. Newmark. This is your week 5 highlights video, and I did already record this video once, but there was a glitch, so I'm recording it a second time. I hope it turns out well. So we just had one reading this week that was of an article format, in addition to the other readings that you had. Those were covered in the undergraduate video. So in this video, we're just going to talk about this review article, basically, by Acharya, and I don't know this scholar personally, and I'm apologizing for the fact that I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I'm going to do my best. If I find out it's pronounced differently, then in the future I'll re-record the video with a proper pronunciation. So this article is called Promoting Social Justice Through Usability in Technical Communication, an Integrative Literature Review. So those of you who have experience in STEM disciplines are very familiar probably with the genre of the review article. If you read Nature, sometimes they'll publish review articles, or other disciplinary publications have them. As I've mentioned, perhaps I teach a class in the biology department, so that is one of the genres we cover over there. In our field, TPC, if you read articles in some of the most prominent journals in the field, like Technical Communication or JBTC, those articles often have a section that is a literature review. Sometimes it's called that, sometimes it's not. This is a really interesting genre. This is an integrative literature review. So my first question for you, as you think about what you've read for today, is what is an integrative literature review? So this was a really interesting article in that the first large chunk of it is a scholarly article that talks about the methodology for doing this kind of literature review and situating this body of work that's included in the bibliography within a larger context. So I want to ask you what you thought of this as a user of this text. So Acharya uses Tarocco's definition of an integrative literature review. It is a way to assemble representative literature on a topic in an integrated way such that new frameworks and perspectives on the topic are generated. Also, if you don't know what this author's research methodologies are, they are in fact disclosed in the methodology section. You should take a look at the definitions of grounded theory and content analysis. You can do some internet searching for them. They are used in other disciplines outside of TPC because TPC is sort of a social science adjacent field. You can see that we borrow methodologies, research methodologies from other fields as well. So the definitions are actually quite straightforward as offered in the article, but I would encourage you to look beyond the article as well to deepen your understanding. So Acharya believes that it is important to review literature about TPC and UX at this moment after the social justice turn, because such a review can advance new thinking in the field. This probably isn't new to you because this whole class has been pervaded with this ethos of social justice, and that's a result of my work being in that vein. And I want you to think about whether in industry this ethos, this approach has started to pervade practices as well. That is one complaint sometimes people have about academia, is that we have very theoretical visions, but they don't actually reach out into the applied domains. I think that's happening increasingly from some of the webinars I've attended from practitioners working in the field. It seems like their approaches are certainly reflecting this more and more. So this literature review, the opening pages, which are the study itself, they use the assembled literature to answer several research questions. And these answers were derived from analyzing the selected texts through specific methodologies, as discussed in the article in that section. So once the definitions are offered, I want you to think about, and of course I'm assuming that you're watching these videos and pausing them, writing notes, looking at other things. So ask yourself, do the definitions of usability that Acharya offers seem novel to you? Are they new? Have they occurred in any of the other readings you've done this semester? So the range of definitions Acharya offers on page 7 of the PDF should be reinforcements for you now, and I would presume not new information. But this is a very laser targeted lit review, and it's very interesting as a result. not just the study part, but the actual bibliography. So be sure that you looked carefully through all of those readings and started to detect themes of your own just on the basis of the titles. So Godwin Agboka, who's a scholar whose work I really admire, has a globally informed definition, and it pushes our perspective. So be sure you can pick out what that definition of usability is from the pages of this article. So pause, go back and look for it, make a note that you want to go back and look for it later. Acharya also delivers Whitney Quisenberry's list of concepts related to usability, which you've already encountered this semester, and I have images on the screen related to that. They have different numbers of items. The informational graphic has 5 items and the bullet pointed list has 6. So think about why those are different, how those are different. The bullet pointed list comes from the article that you read for today, and the other graphic is Quisenberry's own graphic that talks about the components of usability. So key concepts concerning user experience goals include there being a need to address, quote, the requirements and expectations of users from other cultures. What is acceptable and usable in one social culture can be unthinkable in another. I want you to think about the, social, religious, political, hobby-related, geographic communities of which you are a member, and whether any of the documentation, the technologies, the products that you use are related to any of those community affiliations, and whether the usability of a product by you in your community could conceivably be very out of place or unthinkable in another context, or vice versa, whether anything that you've ever tried to use has been really challenging because of your positioning in a particular context. So key concepts concerning sociocultural goals are as follows. So a principal goal is to design products to empower and improve the lives of users within and across cultures. That concept of empowering, improving the lives of users, I think wasn't necessarily imbued throughout a design process historically, but that is something that we really prioritize now. Acharya names these features of a product's usability in particular cultural contexts: empowerment, inclusion, accessibility, meaningfulness, and sociocultural practices. How can we ensure that we continue to be mindful of ways to address concerns related to cultural usability? That's very important. And as we are an increasingly globalized workforce and manufacturing infrastructure, it's really important to think about these cross-cultural concerns. So how are minimalism, plain language, and I have an image from the Plain Language Institute on the screen, and participatory design, effective design approaches for enhancing usability that further social justice goals? Acharya lists some of the oft-used usability inspection techniques, starting with the bulleted list that has think aloud protocols as the first item. Now, when you read that list, I want you to kind of dovetail it with some of the other works that you've read this semester that offer other usability inspection techniques. Is this ringing a bell to you? How familiar are you with these approaches like think aloud protocols and the others at this time? Some of them are very low tech. Some of them are very high tech. Some would happen in a usability laboratory setting. Some could happen in the field. So what does localized usability mean? And can you imagine scenarios for its application? A social justice orientation, this is the last bullet point here, Acharya writes, asks usability practitioners to think about deploying localization strategies in ways that will reify and promote empowerment and positively impact the lived experiences of product users in the target locale. Again, this is very much in the spirit of globalized usage as well as localized usage. When products go to market, for example, their documentation can't necessarily be the same in every application. I use this leaflet that came with our water heater in my undergraduate classes sometimes. It's by a German company called Grundfos, and in it there are 30 languages used, and it's largely pictographic, trying to show users how to use this, how to detect dangerous scenarios that might emerge. That was the way that that organization solved the problem of international usage of their product. But would a different approach have kept their users, their purchasers of their product, safer, happier, more engaged if a different approach had been used? So think about all of these concepts in this integrative literature review, and I hope it was interesting for you to read and engage with. And so I'm going to sign off. That's the end of your week 5 highlights video. I will see you next week.